Book of Judges, Chapter 1 in Filipino. Pagkamatay ni Jose, nagtanong kay Yahweh ang mga Israelita, "Sino sa amin ang unang sasalakay sa mga Kananeo? Ang lipi ni Huda ang mauuna. Ipapasakop ko sa kanila ang lupain," sagot ni Yahweh. Sinabi ng mga kabilang sa lipi ni Huda sa mga kabilang sa lipi ni Simeon, "Tulungan ninyo kami sa pagsakop sa lugar ng nakaalan para sa amin. At pagkatapos ay tutulungan namin kayo sa pagsakop sa lupain para sa inyo." Tumulong nga ang mga lipi ni Simeon. Tinulungan sila ni Yahweh sa matalo at mga Kananeo at ang mga Pereseo. Umabot sa 10,000 ang napatay nila sa Besek. Doon nila nilabanan ang hari ng Besek sa mga Kananeo at mga Pereseo. Tumakas ang hari ng Besek, ngunit hinabol nila ito, at nang mahuli ay pinutulan ng hinlalaki sa paa at kamay. Sinabi ng hari ng Besek, 70 hari ang naputulan ko ng hinlalaki ng paa at kamay at pinamulot ng mumo sa ilalim ng aking mesa. Ngayon pinagbayad ako ng Diyos ang sa aking ginawa. Dinala ito sa Jerusalem at doon namatay. Ang Jerusalem ay sinalakay at nasakop ng lipi ni Huda. Pinatay nila ang mga nakatira roon at sinunog ang lungsod. Pagkatapos nilabanan naman nila ang mga Kananeo sa mga kaburulan, sa katapagan at sa disyerto sa katimugan. Sinalakay ng lipi ni Huda ang mga Kananeyong nasa Hebron, dating lungsod ng Arba, at natalo nila sina Sesai, Ahiman at Talmai. Mula sa Hebron, sinalakay naman nila ang Debir, ang dating lungsod ng Sefer. Sinabi ni Caleb, "Ang anak ko si Aksa ay ibibigay ko para sa maging asawa ng sino man makakasakop sa lungsod ng Sefer." Si Otniel na anak ni Kenas at pamangkin ni Caleb ang nagsakop sa lungsod, kaya siya ang napangasawa ni Aksa. Nang sila ikinasal, inutusan ni Otniel si Aksa na humingi ng bukirin sa kanyang amang si Caleb. Kaya nagpunta si Aksa kay Caleb. Pagdating doon, tinanong naman siya agad nito kung ano ang kailangan niya. "Bigyan mo po sana ako ng lugar na may tubig. Ang lupa ipinigay mo sa akin ay walang magpagkukunan ng tubig," sabi ni Aksa. At ibinigay sa kanya ni Caleb ang mga balon sa gawing itaas at ibaba. Ang angkan ni Hobab na isang Sineo, na kamag-anak ng biyenan ni Moises, ay sumama sa lipi ni Huda mula sa Jericho, ang lungsod ng mga palma, hanggang sa ilang ng Huda sa timog ng Arad. Nanirahan sila kasama ang mga Amalekita. Ang lipi naman ni Simeon ay tinulungan ng lipi ni Huda sa pagsakop ng lungsod ng Serfat. Winasak nila ito ng husto at pinangalang Horma. Nasakop din nila ang buong Gaza, Ashlekon at Ekron. Tinulungan ni Yahweh ang Huda, kaya't nasakop nila ang mga kaburulan. Ngunit hindi nila nasakop ang mga nasa kapatagan sapagkat ang mga taga-roon ay may karwaheng bakal. At tulad ng sinabi ni Moises, ibinigay nga kay Caleb ang Hebron. Pinalayas niya roon ang 3 anak ni Anak. Ang mga Jebuseo namang naninirahan sa Jerusalem ay hindi pinaalis ng lipi ni Benjamin. Kaya hanggang ngayon kasama nila naninirahan doon ang mga tao. Ang lungsod naman ni Betel na dating Luz ay sinalakay ng mga lipi ni Jose at tinulungan din sila ni Yahweh. Nagpadala muna sila roon ng mga espiya. Sa daan ay may nasalubong silang isang tao mula sa lungsod. Sinabi nila rito, "Ituro mo sa amin ang pagpasok sa lungsod at kakantimpalaan ka namin." Tinuro naman nito sa kanila at pinatay nila ang mga taga roon maliban sa lalaking nagpatungan nila pati ang pamilya nito. Pagkatapos, ang lalaki iyon ay nagpunta sa lupain ng mga Heteo at nagtayo ng isang lungsod na hanggang ngayon tinatawag na Luz. Hindi pinalis ng lipi ng Manases ang mga naninirahan sa mga lungsod ng Beth-Sean, Taanak, Dor, Ibleam, Megiddo, at sa mga ngayong nasakop ng mga ito. Kaya't nanatili roon ang mga Kananeo. Subalit nang maging mas makapangyarihan ang mga Israelita, hindi na nila lubusang pinaalis ang mga Kananeo, ngunit sa pilitan nilang pinagtrabaho ang mga ito bilang alipin. Hindi rin pinaalis ang mga lipi ng Ephraim ang mga Kananeo sa lungsod ng Gezer. Sila'y sama-samang naninirahan doon. Hindi pinaalis ng lipi ni Zebulun ang mga naninirahan sa lungsod ng Kitron at Nahalol. Sama-sama silang nanirahan doon. Subalit sa pilitan nilang pinagtrabaho ang mga ito bilang mga alipin. Hindi rin pinaalis ang mga lipi ni Asher, ang mga taga-lungsod ng Ako, Sidon, Ahlab, Aksib, Helba, Afek, at Rehob. Sama-sama silang nanirahan doon. Hindi rin pinalis sa mga lipi ng Neftali ang mga taga Beth-Semes at Bet-Naanat. Sila'y sama-samang nanirahan doon, ngunit inalipin nila ang mga taga roon. Ang lipi naman ni Dan ay napaurong ng mga Amoreyo papuntang bulubundukin. Hindi sila pinayagan ng mga Amoreyo na makapanirahan sa kapatagan, sa halip ay itinaboy sila sa kaburulan. Hindi umalis sa Heres, Alayon at sa Albim ang mga Amoreyo. Ngunit dumating ang araw na nasakop nila ang mga lipi ni Jose at inalipin sila ng mga ito. Ang sakop ng mga Amoreyo ay mula sa Pasong Alakdan hanggang sa Petra.
Chapter 2. Now the angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochim, and he said, "I brought you up out of Egypt and led you into the land which I have sworn to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. And as for you, you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. And you shall tear down their altars, but you have not obeyed me. What is it you have done? Therefore I also said, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare to you." And it came about when the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the sons of Israel, but the people lifted up their voices and wept. So they named that place Bochim, and there they sacrificed to the Lord. When Joshua had dismissed the people, the sons of Israel went each to his inheritance to possess the land, and the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who survived Joshua, who have seen all the great work of the Lord which he has done for Israel. Then Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the territory of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. And all that generation who were gathered to their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, who did not know the Lord, nor yet the work which he has done for Israel. Then the sons of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals, and forsook the Lord and the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods from among the gods of the people who were around them, and bowed themselves down to them. Thus they provoked the Lord to anger. So they forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtaroth. And the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he gave them unto the hands of plunderers, who plundered them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies around them, so that they could no longer stand before their enemies. Wherever they went, the hand of the Lord were against them for evil, as the Lord had spoken, and as the Lord had sworn to them, so that they were severely distressed. Then the Lord raised up judges who delivered them from the hands of those who plundered them. And yet they did not listen to their judges, for they played the harlot after other gods and bowed themselves down to them. They turned aside quickly from the way in which their fathers have walked, to obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do as their fathers. And when the Lord was with the judge, he delivered them from the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who oppressed and afflicted them. And it came about when the judge died that they would turn back and act more corruptly than their fathers, in following other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They did not abandon their practices or their stubborn ways. So the angel of the Lord burned against Israel, and he said, because this nation had transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and has not listened to my voice, I also will no longer drive out before them any of their nations which Joshua left when he died, in order to test Israel by them, whether they would keep the way of the Lord to walk in it, as their fathers did or not. So the Lord allowed those nations to remain, not driving them out quickly, and he did not give them into the hand of Joshua either.
Chapter 3. Now these are the nations which the Lord left, that he might test Israel by them. That is, all who had known any of the wars in Canaan. This was only so that the generations of the children of Israel might be taught to know war, at least those who had not formerly known it, namely 5 lords of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites, who dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath, and they were left that he might test Israel by them, to know whether they would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he had commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. Thus the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. So the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God, and served the Baals and Asherahs. Therefore, the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Cushan Rishathaim 8 years. When the children of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for the children of Israel, who delivered them, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. He went out to war, and the Lord delivered Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, and his hand prevailed over Cushan Rishathaim. So the land had rest for 40 years. Then Othniel, the son of Kenaz died. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. Then he gathered to himself the people of Ammon, and Amalek, went and defeated Israel and took possession of the city of palms. So the children of Israel served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for them, Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. By him the children of Israel sent tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Ehud made himself a dagger. It was a double-edged and a cubit in length. It was double-edged and a cubit in length, and fastened it under his clothes on his right thigh. So he brought the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man, and when he had finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who had carried the tribute. But he himself turned back from the stone images that were at Gilgal and said, I have a secret message for you, O king. He said, keep silence, and all who attended him went out from him. So Ehud came to him. Now he was sitting upstairs in his cool private chamber. Then Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. So he arose from his seat. Then Ehud reached with his left hand, took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. Even the hilt went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not draw the dagger out of his belly. And his entrails came out. Then Ehud went out through the porch and shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked them. When he had gone out, Eglon's servant came to look, and to their surprise, the doors of the upper room were locked. So they said he is probably attending. He's probably attending to his needs in the cool chamber. So they waited until they were embarrassed, and still he had not opened the doors of the upper room. Therefore they took the key and opened them, and there was their master fallen dead on the floor. But Ehud had escaped while they delayed, and passed beyond the stone images and escaped to Seirah. And it happened when he arrived that he blew the trumpet in the mountains of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mountains, and he led them. Then he said to them, follow me, for the Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hands. So they went down after him, seized the fords of the Jordan leading to Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross over. And at that time, they killed about 10,000 men of Moab, all stout men of valor. Not a man escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. After him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who killed 600 men of the Philistines with ox goad, and he also delivered Israel.
Judge 4. Israel did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Now that Ehud was dead, so the Lord told them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who regained in Hazor. Sisera, the commander of his army, was based in Haroshai Hagomi, because he had 900 chariots fitted with iron and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. They cried to the Lord for help. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lipidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah, between Ramah and Bethel, in the hill country of Ephraim. And the Israelites went up to her to have their dispute decided. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 of men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead them up to Mount Tabor. I will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariot and his troops to the Kishon River, and give him into your hands. Barak said to her, if you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go. Certainly, I will go with you, said Deborah. But because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. There Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men went up under his command. Deborah also went up with him. Now Hebrew, the Kenites had left the other Kenites, the descendants of Hobab, Moses' brother-in-law, and pitched his tent by the great tree in Zanan near Kadesh. When they told Sisera that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera summoned from Haroshai Hagoyim to the Kishon River all his men and his 900 chariot fitted with iron. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" So Barak went to down Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. At Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariot and army by the sword, and Sisera got down from his chariot and fled on foot. Barak pursued the chariot and army as far as Haroshai Hagoyim, and all Sisera's troop fell by the sword. Not a man was left. Sisera meanwhile fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Canaanite, because there was an alliance between Jabin, king of Hazar, and the family of Heber the Canaanite. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come, my lord, come right in. Don't be afraid." So he entered her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. "I am thirsty," he said. "Please, give me some water." She opened a skin of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him up, stand in the doorway of the tent. He told her, "If someone comes by and asks you, 'Is anyone there?' say no." But Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. Just then Barak came by in pursuit of Sisera, and Jael went out to meet him. "Come," she said, "I will show you the man you're looking for." So he went in with her, and there lay Sisera with the tent peg through his temple, dead. On that day God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, before the Israelites, and the hands of the Israelites pressed harder and harder against Jabin, king of Canaan, until they destroy him.
Chapter 5 in Tigrinya. بتا معالتي ديوران بارقن ودي أبينعوم زمزمر زي كمزي لهم زمرو مرحتي أب إسرائيل مرحت سلزو صدو تهزب دمارو سبفقات سلزو فيه نجزابير بارخو عتم نجسا سمعو عتم شمامتي صنبلو أنا نجزابير كزمرولو نجزابير نأملاخ إسرائيل أكانيلو اللخ وجزابير كابس عار مسوات أمرور إدم دما مسكتك مدري عنك أتكت السمايات ون أنت أبتبو دمنات دما ما أنت أبتبو آخرنا بكن مجزابير تنكت كتو إذا سينا زخاب كن مجزابير أملاخ إسرائيل تنقانقه بزمن شامغار ودعنوت بزمن يعل قولنا من قد يحدقو حلفت من قد ما بتوي واي من قد خدو أنا ديبورا كساعزو تنس أنا بإسرائيل كا أدي خوين كساعزو تنس أب إسرائيل حلقو تسعنو حدث ملاغتي حريو شعوق أب أف دقيتها نبري أبتم 4 شح إسرائيل والتخ أخوني كوينات كا أكون ده تريه لبي مستم أما أكل هزبتات فتيوم رؤسهم زوفيو مستم رحت إسرائيل إيو إجزيابير باروخو أتم ساعتو أودوك التوتحو أبتم مصافنتي التقمطو أتم محلفتي من قدون بزلو تزاربو كابدا هيك السنياتات رحقهم أمنغو قاباتات أب قبرتات صدقي إجزيابير أب تأما أكل إسرائيل تنبر قبرتات صدقي حالقو دما ينقرو ሽዑ ህዝቢ እግዚኣብሔር ናብ ደጌታት ወረደ ተንሲ ዲቦራ ተንሲ መዝሙር ዘምሪ ባርቕ እውን ተንሲ ኣታ ወዲ ኣብንዖም መሩኻትካ ማርኽ ሽዑ ተረፍ እቶም ኩብራትን እቲ ህዝብን ወረዱ እግዚኣብሔር ናባይ ኣብቶም ጀጋኑ ወረደ ኣብ ኣማሊቕ ድማ ዝስሮም ኣብ ኤፍሬም ወረዱ ድሕሬኻ ብንያም ኣብ ማእከል ህዝብታትካ ሓለቑኻ ኣብ ሚካር ኣብ ዛብሎን ብበትሪ ገዛኢ ዝመርሕ ወረዱ ሽማምቲ ሳኮር ምስ ዲቦራ ነበሩ ባርቕ እውን ከም ይሳኮር ነበረ ብተሃዋኽ ናብቲ ለስ እግሩ ጎየ ኣብ ጥቓሩባታት ሮቤል ድማ ኣብቲ ዓበይቲ ምኽርታት ልቢ ነበረ ስለምንታይ ከ ዕንዱር ጓሶት እትሰምዕ ኣብ ማእከል ደንቤላታት ኣባጊዕ ኮፍ በልካ ኣብ ጥቓሩባታት ሮቤል ዓበይቲ መዝሙር ልቢ ነይሩ ጊልዓድ ኣብ ክንዩ ዮርዳኖስ ሰፊሩ ነበረ ዳንከ ስለምንታይ ኣብ መራኽብ ተቐመጠ ኣሴር ኣብ ገምገም ባሕሪ ይቕመጥ ነበረ ኣብ ወደቡ ከዓ ሰፈረ ዛብሎን ነፍሱ ንሞት ዝወፈየ ህዝቢ እዩ ንፍታሌም ድማ ኣብ በረኽቲ መሮር ከምኡ ነበረ ነገስታት መጺኦም ተዋጉ ሽዑቲ ኣብ ተዓንከ ኣብ ማያት መገዲ ነገስታት ከዓ ከነኣን ተዋጉ ምርኮ ብሩር ግና ኣይወሰዱን ካብ ሰማይ ተወጉ ከዋኽብቲ ካብ መኻዱም ድማ ምስ ሲሳር ተዋጉ ሩባ ቂሶን ናብ ጥንቲ ሩባ ኣብቲ ቂስቶን ጎቲቱ ወሰዶም ወነፍሰይ ብሓይሊ ንቕድሚት ገስግሲ ሽዑ ካብ ጋልበት እቶም ሓያላቱ ሸኾና ፈረስ ድረጓዕጓዕ በለ መልኣኽ እግዚኣብሔር ድማ ንሜሮስ ርጎምዎ ይብል ንሓገዝ እግዚኣብሔር ኣብ ልዕሊ እቶም ጀጋኑ ስለ ዘይመፁ እቶም ኣብኡ ዝነበሩ ኣዝኹም ርጎምዎም ያዕል ሰበይቲ ሓቤር ቀናዊ ካብ ኣንስቲ ብርኽቲ ትኹን ካብ ድንኳን ካብ ዘለዉ ኣንስቲ ብርኽቲ ትኹን ንሱ ማይ ለመነ እሞ ፀባ ሃበቶ ብመስተያ ክቡራት ጌራ ከዓ ርጎ ኣቕረበትሉ ኢዳ ናብ ሸኻል የማኒት ኢዳ ከዓ ናብ መዶሻ ዓይቲ ዘርግሐት ንሲሳር ድማ ወቕዓቶ ኣብ ርእሱ ከዓ ሸኸለትሉ መልሓሉ ከዓ ኣንኲላውን ኣሕለፈቶ ኣብ መንጎ ኣጋራ ቁልዕፅ ኢሉ ወደቐ እሞ በጥካ በለ እወ ኣብ መንጎ ኣጋራ ቁልዕፅ ኢሉ ወደቐ ኣብቲ ተቆልዓፀተሉ ኣብኡ ድማ ሞይቱ ወደቐ ኣደ ሲሳር ብመስኮት ጠመተት ቤተ ዓይኒ ርግበ ኮይና ከዓ ጨደረት ሰረገላታት እንታይ ኮይኑ ምምፃእ ደንጎየ መንኮራኹር ሰረገሉ ከዓ እንታይ ኮይኑ ደሓረ እተን ጥበበኛታት ወዘራዝር ድማ መለሳላ ንሳውን ርእሳ መለሰት ምርኮዶ ኣይረኸቡን ኣይመቐሉን ደኸ ንነፍሲ ወከፍ ሰብኣይ ሓንቲ ጓል ክልተ ጓል ንሲራ ከዓ ምርኮ ከዓ በበይኑ ዝሕብሩ ክዳውንቲ ምርኮ በበይኑ ዝሕብሩ ፍሉጥ ክዳውንቲ ምርኮ በበይኑ ዝሕብሩ ኣብ ክሳዱውን እቶም ምሩኻሲ በበይኑ ዝሕብሩ ብክልተ ወገኑ ድማ ጡልፍ ክዳውንቲ ኣይረኸቡን ወእግዚኣብሔር ኩሎም ጸለእትኻ ከምኡ ይጥፉ እቶም ዝፈትዎ ግና ከም ፀሓይ ብሓይሊ ከምቲ ብሓይላ ትወፅእ ይድመቑ እታ ሃገር ድማ 40 ዓመት ዓረፈት
onídàájọ́ kẹfà Gídíónì àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì sì tún ṣe ohun tí ó burú ní ojú Olúwa ó sì fi wọ́n lé àwọn ará Mídíánì lọ́wọ́ fún ọdún 7 agbára àwọn ará Mídíánì sì pọ̀ púpọ̀ lórí àwọn Ísírẹ́lì wọ́n sì hùwà ipá sí wọn nítorí ìdí èyí àwọn Ísírẹ́lì sá lọ sí àwọn orí òkè wọ́n sì kọ́ àgọ́ fún ara wọn nínú ihò àpáta àti nínú ọ̀gbùn àti ní ibi agbára nínú àpáta ní ìgbàkúgbà tí àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì bá ti gbin ọ̀gbìn wọn àwọn ará Mídíánì àwọn ará Amálẹ́kì àti àwọn ará ìlú ọ̀run mìíràn ìlà oòrùn mìíràn yóò wá láti bá wọn jà wọn yóò tẹ̀dó sí orí ilẹ̀ náà wọn á sì bà irúgbìn wọn yìí jẹ́ títí dé Gásà wọn kì í sì fi ohun alààyè kankan sílẹ̀ fún àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì kì báà ṣe àgùntàn màálù tàbí kẹ́tẹ́kẹ́tẹ́ wọn á máa wà pẹ̀lú ohun ọ̀sìn wọn àti àwọn àgọ́ wọn á sì dàbí èṣù nítorí púpọ̀ wọn ènìyàn kò sì lè ka iye àwọn ènìyàn náà bẹ́ẹ̀ ni àwọn ìbá kà sí. Wọ́n pọ̀ débi pé wọn kò ṣeé kà ní iye. Wọ́n á bo ilẹ̀ náà, wọ́n á sì jẹ ẹ́ run. Àwọn ará Mídíánì sì pọ́n àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì lójú. Wọ́n sọ wọ́n di òtòṣì àti aláìní. Fún ìdí èyí wọ́n ké pe Olúwa nínú àdúrà fún ìrànlọ́wọ́. Nígbà tí àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì ké pe Olúwa nítorí àwọn ará Mídíánì, Olúwa fi etí sí igbe wọn. Ó sì rán wòlíì kan sí wọn, ẹni tí ó wí pé, èyí ni ohun tí Olúwa Ọlọ́run Ísírẹ́lì wí. Mo mú yín gòkè ti Íjíbítì wá láti oko ẹrú. Mo gbà yín kúrò nínú agbára Íjíbítì àti kúrò nínú ọwọ́ gbogbo àwọn aninilára yín. Mo lé wọn kúrò níwájú yín, mo sì fi ilẹ̀ wọn fún yín. Mo wí fún yín pé, èmi ni Olúwa Ọlọ́run yín. Ẹ má ṣe sin àwọn òrìṣà àwọn ará Ámórì ní ilẹ̀ ẹni tí ẹ̀yin ń gbé, ṣùgbọ́n ẹ̀yin kò gbọ́ràn sí ohun tí mo sọ. Ní ọjọ́ kan, áńgẹ́lì Olúwa wá, ó sì jókòó ní abẹ́ igi óákù ófírà, èyí tí ń ṣe ti Jóásì ará Abieseri, níbi tí Gídíọ́nì ọmọ rẹ̀ ti ń lu ọkà jéró níbi ìpọ́ntí wáìnì láti fi pamọ́ kúrò níwájú àwọn ará Mídíánì. Nígbà tí áńgẹ́lì Olúwa fi ara hàn Gídíọ́nì, ó wí fún wípé, Olúwa wà pẹ̀lú rẹ, akọni ológun. Gídíọ́nì dáhùn pé, alàgbà, bí Olúwa bá wà pẹ̀lú wa, kí ló dé tí gbogbo ìwọ̀nyí fi ń ṣẹlẹ̀ sí wa? Níbi gbogbo àwọn iṣẹ́ ìyanu rẹ tí bàbá wa ròyìn rẹ̀ fún wa nígbà tí wọ́n wí pé, Olúwa kò há mú wa gòkè láti ilẹ̀ Íjíbítì wá. Ṣùgbọ́n nísinsìnyí, Olúwa ti kọ̀ wá sílẹ̀, ó sì ti fi wá lé àwọn ará Mídíánì lọ́wọ́. Olúwa sì yí padà sí i, ó sì wí fún un pé, lọ nínú agbára tí o ní yìí, kí o sì gba àwọn ará Ísírẹ́lì sílẹ̀ kúrò lọ́wọ́ àwọn ará Mídíánì. Èmi ni ó ń rán ọ lọ. Gídíọ́nì sì dáhùn pé, yé Olúwa mi, ọ̀nà wo ni èmi yóò fi gba Ísírẹ́lì là? Ìdílé mi ni ó jẹ́ aláìlera jù ní Mánásè, àti pé èmi ni ó sì kéré jù ní ìdílé bàbá mi. Olúwa sì dáhùn pé, èmi yóò wà pẹ̀lú rẹ, ìwọ yóò sì pa gbogbo àwọn ará Mídíánì láìkù ẹnìkankan. Gídíọ́nì sì dáhùn pé, nísinsìnyí tí mo bá bá ojúrere rẹ pàdé, fún mi ní àmì pé ìwọ ni ló ń bá mi sọ̀rọ̀. Jọ̀wọ́ má ṣe kúrò níbi títí èmi yóò fi mú ọrẹ wá fún ọ, kí n sì gbé sí iwájú rẹ. Olúwa sì wí pé, èmi yóò dúró títí ìwọ yóò fi dé. Gídíọ́nì sì yára wọ ilé lọ, ó sì pa ọ̀dọ́ ewúrẹ́ kan, wọ́n sì sè é. Ó sì mú ìyẹ̀fun ẹ̀fà kan, ó fi ṣe àkàrà aláìwú. Ó gbé ẹran náà sínú àgbọ̀n, ṣùgbọ́n ó fi ọbẹ̀ rẹ̀ sínú ìkòkò. Ó gbé wọn jáde tọ̀ áńgẹ́lì náà bí ọrẹ lábẹ́ igi óákù. Áńgẹ́lì Ọlọ́run náà sì wí fún un pé, gbé ẹran náà àti àkàrà àìwú náà sí orí àpáta yìí, kí o sì da omi ọbẹ̀ rẹ̀ sí orí rẹ̀. Gídíọ́nì sì ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Áńgẹ́lì Olúwa sì fi orí ọ̀pá tí ó wà ní ọwọ́ rẹ̀ kan ẹran àti àkàrà àìwú náà. Iná sì jáde láti inú àpáta, ó sì jó ẹran àti àkàrà náà, kò sì rí áńgẹ́lì náà mọ́. Nígbà tí Gídíọ́nì sì ti mọ̀ dájúdájú pé áńgẹ́lì Olúwa ni, ó ké wípé, ha! Olúwa Olódùmarè, mo ti rí áńgẹ́lì Olúwa ní ojúkorojú. Ṣùgbọ́n Olúwa wí fún un pé, àlàáfíà, má ṣe bẹ̀rù, ìwọ kì yóò kú. Báyìí ni Gídíọ́nì mọ́ pẹpẹ kan fún Olúwa níbẹ̀. Ó sì pe orúkọ rẹ̀ ní àlàáfíà ní Olúwa. Ó sì wà ní Ófírà ti Abieseri títí di òní. Ní òru ọjọ́ náà, Olúwa wí fún un pé, mú akọ màlúù bàbá rẹ, àní akọ màlúù kejì ọlọ́dún méje. wó pẹ́pẹ́ Báálì bàbá rẹ lulẹ̀, kí o sì bẹ́ igi ère òrìṣà Áṣẹ́rà tí ó wà ní ẹ̀gbẹ́ rẹ̀ lulẹ̀. Lẹ́yìn èyí, kí o wá mọ́ pẹ́pẹ́ èyí tí ó yẹ fún Olúwa Ọlọ́run rẹ lórí òkè yìí, kí o sì mú akọ màlúù kejì, kí o sì mú igi ère òrìṣà Áṣẹ́rà tí ìwọ bẹ́ lulẹ̀ rú ẹbọ sísun sí Olúwa. Gídíọ́nì mú 10 nínú àwọn ìránṣẹ́ rẹ̀, ó sì ṣe bí Olúwa ti pàṣẹ fún, ṣùgbọ́n nítorí ó bẹ̀rù àwọn ará ilé bàbá rẹ̀ àti àwọn ènìyàn ìlú náà, kò ṣe ní ọ̀sán, òru ni ó ṣe é. Nígbà tí ilẹ̀ ọjọ́ kejì mọ́, tí àwọn ènìyàn ìlú náà jí, wọ́n rí pé a ti fọ́ pẹ́pẹ́ Báálì àti pé a ti bẹ́ igi ère òrìṣà Ẹ́sẹ́rà tí ó wà ní ẹ̀gbẹ́ rẹ̀, a sì ti fi akọ màlúù kejì rú ẹbọ lórí pẹ́pẹ́ tí a ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ mọ́. Àwọn ènìyàn ìlú náà bi ara wọn wípé ta ni ó ṣe èyí? Lẹ́yìn tí wọ́n fi ara balẹ̀ ṣe ìwádìí, wọ́n gbọ́ wípé Gídíọ́nì ọmọ Jóásì ni ó ṣe é. Àwọn ọkùnrin ìlú náà sì wí fún Jóásì wípé, mú ọmọ rẹ jáde wá, ó ní láti kú nítorí pé ó ti wó pẹ́pẹ́ Báálì lulẹ̀, ó sì ti ké ère òrìṣà Áṣẹ́rà tí ó wà ní ẹ̀bá rẹ̀ lulẹ̀. Ṣùgbọ́n Jóásì bi àwọn èrò tí wọ́n fi ìbínú dúró tì í wípé, ẹ̀yin yóò ha gbèjà Báálì bí? Ẹ̀yin yóò ha gbà á sílẹ̀ bí? Ẹnikẹ́ni tí ó bá gbèjà rẹ̀, kíkú ni olúwa rẹ̀ yóò kú ní òwúrọ̀. Bí Báálì bá ṣe Ọlọ́run nítòótọ́, yóò jà fún ara rẹ̀, bí ẹnikẹ́ni bá wó pẹ́pẹ́ rẹ̀ lulẹ̀. Fún ìdí èyí, ní ọjọ́ náà wọ́n pe Gídíọ́nì ní Jerubbaálì, wípé jẹ́ kí Báálì bá a jà nítorí pé ó ti wó pẹ́pẹ́ Báálì. Láìpẹ́ jọjọ, àwọn ogun àwọn Mídíánì, ti àwọn Amálẹ́kì àti ti àwọn ènìyàn ìhà ìlà oòrùn yòókù kó ara wọn jọ pọ̀ ní ìṣọ̀kan. Wọ́n sì kọjá Jọ́dánì, wọ́n sì tẹ̀dó sí àfonífojì Jesreeli. Ẹ̀mí Olúwa sì bà lé Gídíọ́nì, ó sì ń fèrè ìpè láti pe àwọn ará Abiesieri láti tẹ̀lé òun. Ó rán àwọn oníṣẹ́ la ilẹ̀ Manasse jà, pé kí wọ́n dira ogun, àti sí Aṣeri, Sebuluni àti Naftali gbogbo pẹ̀lú sì lọ láti pàdé wọn. Gídíọ́nì wí fún Ọlọ́run pé, bí ìwọ yóò bá gba Ísírẹ́lì là nípasẹ̀ mi bí ìwọ ti ṣe ìlérí, kíyèsí, èmi yóò fi awọ irun àgùntàn lé ilẹ̀ ìpakà ní alẹ́ òní. Bí ìrì bá sẹ́ sí orí awọ yìí nìkan, tí gbogbo ilẹ̀ yòókù sì gbẹ, nígbà náà ni èmi yóò mọ̀ lóòótọ́ pé ìwọ yóò gba Ísírẹ́lì là nípasẹ̀ mi bí ìwọ ti sọ. Èyí ni ó sì ṣẹlẹ̀. Nígbà tí Gídíọ́nì jí ní òwúrọ̀ ọjọ́ kejì, ó sì fún irun àgùntàn náà, ọpọ́n omi kan sì kún. Gídíọ́nì sì tún wí fún Olúwa pé, jọ̀wọ́ má ṣe bínú sí mi, ṣùgbọ́n jẹ́ kí n tún wá ìdánilójú kan sí. Èmi bẹ̀ ọ́, jẹ́ kí n fi awọ irun yìí ṣe ìdánwò kan sí. Ní àsìkò yìí, jẹ́ kí awọ irun yìí gbẹ, kí gbogbo ilẹ̀ sì tutù pẹ̀lú ìrì. Ní òru náà, Olúwa ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Awọ irun àgùntàn nìkan ni ó gbẹ, gbogbo ilẹ̀ yòókù sì tutù nítorí ìrì.
Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the well of Harod, so that the camp of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hand has saved me. Now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And of whomever I say to you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water. And the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink. And the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouth, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water. And the Lord said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and deliver the Midianites into your hand. Let all the other people go, every man to his place. So the people took provisions and their trumpets in their hands, and he sent away all the rest of Israel, and every man to his tent, and retained those 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. It happened on the same night that the Lord said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have delivered it unto your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servants, and you shall hear what they say. And afterwards your hands shall be strengthened to go down against the camp. Then he went down with Purah his servant to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp. Now the Midianites and the Amalekites, all the people of the east, were lying in the valley as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the seashore in multitude. And when Gideon had come, there was a man telling a dream to his companion. He said, I have had a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent and struck it so that it fell and overturned, and the tent collapsed. Then his companion answered and said, this is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Jos, and a man of Israel. Into his hands God has delivered Midian and the whole camp. And so it was when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, that he worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise, the Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into your hands. Then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put a trumpet to every man's hand with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers. And he said to them, look at me and do likewise. Watch, and I come to the edge of the camp. You shall do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the trumpet on every side of the whole camp and say, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just as they had posted the watch, and they blew the trumpet and broke the pitchers that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpet and broke the pitchers. They held the torch in their left hand and the trumpet in their right hand for the blowing, and they cried, the sword of the Lord and Gideon. And every man stood in his place all around the camp, and the whole army ran and cried out and fled. When the 300 blew the trumpet, the Lord set every man's sword against his companion throughout the whole camp, and the army fled to Beth Acacia towards Zerah as far as the border of Eber Mohalah by Taboth. And the men of Israel gathered together from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh and pursued the Midianites. Then Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mountains of Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites and seize from the watering places as far as Beth Barah and the Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered together and seized the watering places as far as Beth Barah and the Jordan. And they captured 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed at the winepress of Zeb. They pursued Midian and brought the head of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of the Jordan.
In French. Et dire à Gédéon, que signifie cette manière d'agir envers nous? Pourquoi ne pas nous avoir appelés quand tu es allé combattre Madian? Et ils eurent avec lui une violente querelle. Gédéon répondit, Qu'ai-je fait en comparaison de vous? Le grappillage d'Éphraïm ne vaut-il pas mieux que le vendange d'Abiézé? C'est entre vos mains que Dieu a livré les chefs de Madian, Horeb et Zib. Qu'ai-je pu faire en comparaison? Ainsi parler, leur colère contre lui s'apaisa. Gédéon arriva au Jourdain et le passa, lui et les 300 hommes qui étaient avec lui, fatigués, mais poursuivant toujours. Il dit aux jeunes de secours, donnez, je vous prie, quelques pains au peuple qui m'accompagne, car ils sont fatigués, et je suis à la poursuite de Zéba et de Salmona, roi de Madian. Les chefs de secours répondent, la main de Zéba et de Salmona est-elle déjà en pouvoir pour que nous donnions à ton armée? Et Gédéon dit, eh bien, lorsque l'Éternel aura livré entre mes mains Zéba et Salmona, je broierai votre chair avec des épines du désert et avec des chardons. De là, il monta à Pénuel, et il fit aux gens de Pénuel la même demande. Et ils lui répondirent comme avaient répondu ceux de secours. Et il dit aussi aux gens de Pénuel, quand je reviendrai en paix, je renverserai cette tour. Zéba et Salmona étaient à Carcor, et leur armée avec eux, environ 15 hommes. Tous ceux qui étaient de l'armée entière, les fils de l'Orient, 120 000 hommes tirant l'épée avaient été tués. Gédéon monta par le chemin de ceux qui habitent sous les tentes, à l'orient de Noba et de Jogbéha, et il bâtit l'armée qui se croyait en sûreté. Zéba et Salmona prirent la fuite. Gédéon les poursuivit. Gens de secours et il dit, voici Zéba et Salmona, au sujet desquels que vous m'avez insulté en disant, la main de Zéba et de Salmona est-elle déjà en ton pouvoir pour que nous donnions du pain à tes hommes fatigués? Châtia les gens de secours avec des épines du désert et avec des chardons. Il renversa aussi la tour de Pénuel et tua les gens de la ville. Il dit à Zéba et Salmona, comment étaient les hommes que vous avez tués au Tabor? Ils répondirent, ils étaient comme toi, chacun avec l'air d'un fils de roi. Il dit, c'étaient mes frères, fils de ma mère. L'Éternel est vivant. Si vous les eussiez laissés vivre, je ne vous tuerai pas. Et il dit à terre, son premier-né, lève-toi, tue-les. Homme de paix, parce qu'il avait peur, parce qu'il était encore un enfant. Zéba et Salmona dirent, lève-toi toi-même et tue-nous, car tel est l'homme, telle est sa force. Et Gédéon se leva et tua Zéba et Salmona, et puis ensuite les croissants qui étaient au cou de leurs chameaux. Les hommes d'Israël dirent à Gédéon, domine sur nous, et toi, ton fils et le fils de ton fils, car tu nous as délivrés de la main de Madian. Gédéon dit, je ne dominerai point sur vous, et mes fils ne domineront point sur vous. C'est l'Éternel qui dominera sur vous. Gédéon leur dit, j'ai une demande à vous faire. Donnez-moi chaque les anneaux que vous avez eus pour le butin. Les ennemis avaient des anneaux d'or, car ils étaient d'Ismaélites. Ils dirent, nous les donnerons volontiers. Et ils étendirent un manteau, sur lequel chacun jeta les anneaux de son butin. Le poids des anneaux d'or que demanda Gédéon fut de 1700 cycles d'or, sans les croissants, les pendants d'oreilles et les vêtements de pourpre que portaient les rois de Madian, et sans les colliers qui étaient au cou de leurs chameaux. Gédéon en fit un éphod, et il le plaça dans sa ville à Ophra, où il devint l'objet des prostitutions de tout Israël, et fit un piège pour Gédéon et pour sa maison. Madian fut humilié devant les enfants d'Israël. Il ne leva plus le durant la vie de Gédéon. Jérubal fit toujours à son retourna et demeura dans sa maison. Gédéon eut 70 fils issus de lui, car il eut plusieurs femmes. Sa concubine, qui était à Sichem, lui enfanta aussi un fils, à qui on donna le nom d'Abimélec. Gédéon, fils de Joas, mourut après une heureuse vieillesse, et il fut enterré dans le sépulcre de Joas, son père Ophra, qui appartenait à la famille d'Abiézé. Gédéon fut mort, les enfants d'Israël recommencèrent à se prostituer au Baal et y prirent Baal-Périph pour leur Dieu. Les gens d'Israël ne se souvinrent point de l'Éternel, leur Dieu, qui les avait délivrés de la main de tous les ennemis qui les entouraient. Et ils n'eurent point d'attachement pour la main de Jérubbal, de Jérubbal, et tout le bien qu'ils avaient fait à Israël.
9 em Brazilian português. Abimeleque. Abimeleque, filho de Jerubbaal, foi aos irmãos de sua mãe em Siquém e disse a eles e a todos os da clã da família de sua mãe: Perguntem a todos os cidadãos de Siquém o que é melhor para eles: ter todos os 70 filhos de Jerubbaal governando sobre eles ou somente um homem? Lembre-se de que eu sou o sangue do seu sangue. Os irmãos de sua mãe repetiram tudo aos cidadãos de Siquém, e estes se mostraram propensos a seguir Abimeleque, pois disseram: ele é o nosso irmão. Deram-lhe 70 peças de prata tiradas do templo de Baal-Berite, aos quais Abimeleque usou para contratar alguns desocupados e vadios que se tornaram seus seguidores. Foi à casa de seu pai, em Ofra, e matou seus 70 irmãos, filhos de Jerubbaal, sobre uma rocha. Mas Jotão, o filho mais novo de Jerubbaal, escondeu-se e escapou. Então todos os cidadãos de Siquém e de Bet-Milo reuniram-se ao lado do carvalho junto à coluna de Siquém para coroar Abimeleque rei. Quando Jotão soube disso, subiu ao topo do monte Gerizim e gritou para eles: ouçam-me, cidadãos de Siquém, para que Deus os ouça. Certo dia as árvores saíram para ungir um rei para si. Disseram à oliveira: seja o nosso rei. A oliveira, porém, respondeu: deveria eu renunciar ao meu azeite, com o qual se presta honra aos deuses e aos homens para dominar sobre as árvores? Então as árvores disseram à figueira: venha ser o nosso rei. A figueira, porém, respondeu: deveria eu renunciar ao meu fruto saboroso e doce para dominar sobre as árvores? Depois as árvores disseram à videira: venha ser o nosso rei. A videira, porém, respondeu: deveria eu renunciar o meu vinho, que alegra os deuses e os homens, para ter domínio sobre as árvores? Finalmente, todas as árvores disseram ao espinheiro: venha ser o nosso rei. O espinheiro disse às árvores: se querem realmente ungir-me rei sobre vocês, venham abrigar-se à minha sombra. Do contrário, sairá fogo do espinheiro e consumirá até os cedros do Líbano. Será que vocês agiram de fato com sinceridade quando fizeram Abimeleque rei? Foram justos com Jerubbaal e sua família, como ele merecia? Meu pai lutou por vocês e arriscou a sua vida para livrar-os das mãos de Midian. Hoje, porém, vocês se revoltaram contra a família de meu pai. Mataram seus 70 filhos sobre a mesma rocha e proclamaram Abimeleque, o filho de sua escrava, rei sobre os cidadãos de Siquém, pelo fato de ser irmão de vocês. Se hoje vocês de fato agiram com sinceridade para com Jerubbaal e sua família, alegre-se com Abimeleque e alegre-se ele com vocês. Entretanto, se não foi assim, que saia fogo de Abimeleque e consuma os cidadãos de Siquém e de Bet-Milo, e que saia fogo dos cidadãos de Siquém e de Bet-Milo e consuma Abimeleque. Depois Jotão fugiu para Beer, onde ficou morando longe de seu irmão Abimeleque. Fazia 3 anos que Abimeleque governava Israel, quando Deus enviou um espírito maligno entre Abimeleque e os cidadãos de Siquém, e estes agiram traiçoeiramente contra Abimeleque. Isso aconteceu para que o crime contra os 70 filhos de Jerubbaal, o derramamento de sangue, do sangue deles, fosse vingado em seu irmão Abimeleque, e os cidadãos de Siquém que o ajudaram a assassinar os seus irmãos. Os cidadãos de Siquém enviaram homens para o alto das colinas para emboscarem os que passarem por ali, e Abimeleque foi informado disso. Nesse meio tempo, Gaal, filho de Ebed, mudou-se com seus parentes para Siquém, cujos cidadãos confiavam nele. Sucedeu que foram ao campo, colheram uvas, pisaram-nas e fizeram uma festa no templo do seu Deus. Comendo e bebendo, amaldiçoaram Abimeleque. Então Gaal, filho de Ebed, disse: Quem é Abimeleque para que o sirvamos? E quem é Siquém? Não é ele o filho de Jerubbaal? E não é Zebul o seu representante? Sirva aos homens de Amor. O pai de Siquém, por que servir a Abimeleque? Ah, se eu tivesse esse povo sob o meu comando, eu me livraria de Abimeleque e lhe daria: mobilize o seu exército e venha. Eu diria: mobilize o seu exército e venha. Quando Jebul, o governante da cidade, ouviu o que dizia Gaal, filho de Ebed, ficou indignado. Secretamente enviou mensageiros a Abimeleque, dizendo: Gaal, filho de Ebed, e seus parentes vieram a Siquém e estão agitando a cidade contra você. Venha de noite, você e seus homens, e fiquem à espera no campo. De manhã, ao nascer do sol, avance contra a cidade. Quando Gaal e sua tropa atacarem, faça com eles o que acharem melhor. E assim Abimeleque e todas as suas tropas partiram de noite e prepararam emboscadas perto de Siquém em 4 companhias. Ora, Gaal, filho de Ebed, tinha saído e estava à porta da cidade quando Abimeleque e seus homens saíram da sua emboscada. Quando Gaal os viu, disse a Zebul: Veja, vem gente descendo do alto das colinas. Zebul, porém, respondeu: Você está confundindo as sombras dos montes com homens. Mas Gaal tornou a falar: Veja, vem gente descendo da parte central do território, e uma companhia está vindo pelo caminho do carvalho dos adivinhadores. Disse-lhe Zebul: Onde está toda aquela sua conversa? Você dizia: Quem é Abimeleque para que o sirvamos? Não são estes os homens que vocês ridicularizaram? Saia e lute contra eles? Então Gaal conduziu para fora os cidadãos de Siquém e lutou contra Abimeleque. Abimeleque o perseguiu e ele fugiu. Muitos dos homens de Siquém caíram mortos ao lado de todo o caminho até a porta da cidade. Abimeleque permaneceu em Arumá. E Zebulon expulsou Gaal e os seus parentes de Siquém. No dia seguinte, o povo de Siquém saiu aos campos e Abimeleque ficou sabendo disso. Então dividiu os seus homens em 3 companhias e armou emboscadas no campo. Quando viu o povo saindo da cidade, levantou-se contra ele e atacou. Abimeleque e as tropas que estavam com ele avançaram até a porta da cidade. Então 2 companhias avançaram sobre os que estavam nos campos e os mataram. E Abimeleque atacou a cidade o dia todo, até conquistá-la e matar o seu povo. Depois destruiu a cidade e espalhou sal sobre ela. Ao saberem disso, os cidadãos que estavam na torre de Siquém entraram na fortaleza do templo de El-Berite. Quando Abimeleque soube que se haviam reunido lá, ele e todos os seus homens subiram ao monte Zelom. Ele apanhou um machado, cortou um galho de árvore e o pôs nos ombros. Então deu esta ordem aos homens que estavam com ele: Rápido, façam o que eu estou fazendo. Todos os homens cortaram galhos e seguiram Abimeleque. Empilharam os galhos junto à fortaleza e a incendiaram. Assim morreu também o povo que estava na torre de Siquém, cerca de 1.000 homens e mulheres. A seguir, Abimeleque foi a Tebes, sitiou-a, conquistou-a, mas dentro da cidade havia uma torre bastante forte, para a qual fugiram todos os homens e mulheres, todo o povo da cidade. Trancaram-se por dentro e subiram para o telhado da torre. Abimeleque foi para a torre e atacou-a, e quando se aproximava da entrada da torre para incendiá-la, uma mulher jogou uma pedra de moinho na cabeça dele e lhe rachou o crânio. Imediatamente ele chamou seu escudeiro e lhe ordenou: tire a espada e mate-me, para que não digam que uma mulher me matou. Então o jovem o atravessou e ele morreu. Quando os israelitas viram que Abimeleque estava morto, voltaram para casa. Assim Deus retribuiu a maldade de Abimeleque praticara contra o seu pai, matando os seus 70 irmãos. Deus fez também os homens de Siquém pagarem por toda a sua maldade. A maldição de Jotão, filho de Jerubaal, caiu sobre eles.
Judges 10. Arose to save Israel, Tola the son of Puah, the son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, and he dwelt in Shamir in the mountains of Ephraim. He judged Israel 23 years, and he died and was buried in Samir. And after him arose Jer, a Gileadite, and he judged Israel 22 years. Now he had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys. They also had 30 towns, which are today called Havoth Jer, to this day, which are in the land of Gilead. And Jer died and was buried in Kamon. Then the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreth, and the gods of Syria, and the gods of Sidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the people of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. So the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the people of Ammon. From that year, they harassed and oppressed the children of Israel for 18 years. All the children of Israel who were in the other side of the Jordan, in the land of the Amorites in Gilead. Moreover, the people of Ammon crossed over the Jordan to fight against Judah also, against Benjamin, and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was severely distressed. And the children of Israel cried out to the Lord, saying, we have sinned against you, because we have both forsaken our God and served the Baals. So the Lord said to the children of Israel, did I not deliver you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites and from the people of Ammon and from the Philistines? Also the Sidonians and the Amalekites and the Moabites oppressed you, and you cried out to me, and I delivered you from their hand. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Therefore, I will deliver you no more. Go and cry out to the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in your time of distress. And the children of Israel said to the Lord, we have sinned. Do to us whatever seems best to you. Only deliver us this day, we pray. So they put away the foreign gods from among them and served the Lord. And his soul could no longer endure the misery of Israel. Then the people of Ammon gathered together and encamped in Gilead. And the children of Israel assembled together and encamped in Mizpah. And the people, the leaders of Gilead, said to one another, who is the man who will begin the fight against the people of Ammon? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead.
Chapter 11. Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior. His father was Gilead. His mother was a prostitute. Gilead's wife also bore him sons. And when they were grown up, they drove Jephthah away. "You are not going to get any inheritance in our family," they said, "because you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and settled in the land of Tob, where a gang of strangglers gathered around him and followed him. Sometime later, when the Ammonites were fighting against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. "Come," they said, "be our commander so we can fight the Ammonites." Jephthah said to them, "Didn't you hate me and drive me from my father's house? Why you come to me now when you're in trouble?" The elders of Gilead said to him, "Nevertheless, we are turning to you now. Come with us to fight the Ammonites, and you will be head over all of us who live in Gilead." Jephthah answered, "Suppose you take me back to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them to me. Will I really be your head?" The elders of Gilead replied, "The Lord is our witness. We will certainly do as you say." So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and commander over them, and repeated all his words before the Lord in Mizpah. Then Jephthah sent messenger to the Ammonite king with the question, "What do you have against me? What that you attacked my country?" The king of Ammonites answered Jephthah's messenger, "When Israel came up out of Egypt, they took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, all the way to the Jordan. Now give it back peaceably." Jephthah sent back messenger to the Ammonite king, saying, "This is what Jephthah says. Israel did not take the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites. But when they came up out of Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and to the Kadesh. Then Israel sent messenger to the king of Edom, saying, 'Give us permission to go through your country.' But the king of Edom will not listen. They sent also the king of Moab, and he refused. So Israel stayed at Kadesh. Next day traveled through the wilderness, skirted the lands of Edom and Moab, passed along the eastern side of the country of Moab, and camped on the other side of the Ammon. They did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was its border. Then Israel sent messenger to Sihon, king of Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, and said to him, 'Let us pass through your country to our own place.' Sihon, however, did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. He mustered all his troops and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. Then the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and his whole army into Israel's hands, and they defeated them. Israel took over all the land of the Amorites who live in that country, capturing all of it from the Arnon to the Jabbok and from the desert to the Jordan. Now since the Lord, the God of Israel, has driven the Amorites out before his people Israel, what right have you to take it over? Will you not take what your God Chemosh gives you? Likewise, whatever the Lord our God has given us, we will possess. Are you any better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever quarrel with Israel or fight with them? For 300 years, Israel occupied Heshbon, Aroer, the surrounding settlements, and all the towns along the Arnon. Why didn't you retake them during that time? I have not wronged you, but you are doing me wrong by waging war against me. Let the Lord, the judge, decide the dispute this day between the Israelites and the Ammonites." The king of Ammon, however, paid no attention to the message Jephthah sent him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Jephthah. He crossed Gilead and Manasseh, passed through Mizpah and Gilead, and from there he advanced against the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord. If you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. When Jephthah went over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gave them into his hands, he devastated 20 towns from Aroer to the vicinity of Minnith, as far as Abel Karimim. Thus Israel subdued Ammon. When Jephthah returned to his home in Mizpah, he should come out to meet him, but his daughter, dancing to the sound of timbrels. She was only child, except for he had neither son nor daughter. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, "Oh no, my daughter, you have brought me down, and I'm devastated. I have made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break." "My father," she replied, "you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised. Now the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. But grant me this one request," she said. "Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends, because I will never marry." "You may go," he said, and he let her go for 2 months. She and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never marry. After the 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. From this comes the Israelites' tradition that each year the young women of Israel go out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite.
Chapter 12, em português. Então os homens de Efraim foram convocados, passaram a Zafon e disseram a Jefté: "Por que você foi lutar contra os filhos de Amon e não nos chamou para ir com você? Por causa disso vamos queimar a sua casa com você dentro dela." Mas Jefté respondeu: "Eu e meu povo tivemos uma grande discussão com os filhos de Amon. Chamei vocês, mas vocês não me livraram das mãos deles. Quando vi que vocês não iam me livrar, arrisquei a minha vida e fui lutar contra os filhos de Amon. E o Senhor os entregou nas minhas mãos. Então por que vocês estão vindo hoje para lutar contra mim?" E Jefté reuniu todos os homens de Gileade e lutou contra Efraim. Os homens de Gileade derrotaram os efraimitas, porque esses tinham dito: "Vocês, gileaditas, que moram no meio de Efraim e Manassés, são desertores de Efraim." Porém, os gileaditas tomaram os vales do Jordão que conduzem a Efraim. E quando algum fugitivo de Efraim dizia: "Quero passar", os homens de Gileade lhe perguntavam: "Você é efraiminita?" Se respondesse que não, os homens de Gileade lhes diziam: "Então diga, Shibolete." Se ele dizia Sibolete, então, não podendo pronunciar corretamente a palavra, eles o agarravam e matavam nos vales do Jordão. Assim, naquele tempo, foram mortos 42.000 efraiminitas. Jefté, o gileadita, julgou Israel durante 6 anos. Ele morreu e foi sepultado numa das cidades de Gileade. Depois de Jefté, quem julgou Israel foi Ibsã, que era de Belém. Ele tinha 30 filhos e 30 filhas. Ibsã deu suas filhas em casamento a homens de fora, e de fora trouxe 30 mulheres para os seus filhos. Ibsã julgou Israel durante 7 anos, então morreu e foi sepultado em Belém. Depois de Ibsã veio Elon, o Zebulonita, que julgou Israel durante 10 anos. Quando Elon, o Zebulonita, morreu, foi sepultado em Aijalon, na terra de Zebulon. Depois de Elon, quem julgou Israel foi Abidom, filho de Hilel, o Piratonita. Ele tinha 40 filhos, 30 netos, que cavalgavam 70 jumentos. Abidom julgou Israel durante 8 anos. Então, Abidom, filho de Liel, o Piratonita, morreu e foi sepultado em Piratom, na terra de Efraim, na região montanhosa dos Amalequitas.
And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribes of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold, you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. And for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, A man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of the angel of God, very awesome. I did ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. But he said to me, Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. So then drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, please let the man of God whom you send come again to us and teach us what we are to do with the child who will be born. And God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of the Lord came again to the woman as she sat in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, Behold, the man who came to me the other day has appeared to me. And Manoah arose and went after his wife and came to the man and said to him, Who are you? The man who spoke to the woman. And he said, I am. And Manoah said, Now when your words come true, what is to be the child's manner of life? And what is his mission? And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, Of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat of anything that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let it be her observe. Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, Please let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, If you detain me, I will not eat of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord. For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, What is your name, so that when your words come true, we may honor you? And the angel of the Lord said to him, Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful? So Manoah took the young goat with grain offering and offered it to the rock, to the Lord, to the one who works wonders. And Manoah his wife was watching. And when the flame went up toward heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. Now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. The angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, We shall surely die, for we have seen God. But his wife said to him, If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering at our hands, or shown us all these things, or now announced to us these things as these. And the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. And the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Manadan between Zorah and Ashtaol.
One day, Samson was in Timnah. One of the Philistine women caught his eye. When he returned home, he told his father and mother, A young Philistine woman in Timnah caught my eye. I want to marry her. Get her for me. His father and mother objected. Isn't there even one woman in our tribe or among all the Israelites you could marry? They asked. Why must you go to the pagan Philistine to find a wife? But Samson told his father, Get her for me. She looks good to me. His father and mother didn't realize the Lord was at work in this, creating an opportunity to work against the Philistines, who ruled over Israel at that time. As Samson and his parents were going down to Timnah, a young lion suddenly attacked Samson near the vineyards of Timnah. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. He did it as easily as if it were a young goat, but he didn't tell his father or mother about it. When Samson arrived in Timnah, he talked with the woman, and was very pleased with her. Later, when he returned to Timnah for the wedding, he turned off the path to look at the carcass of the lion, and he found that a swarm of bees had made some honey in the carcass. He scooped some of the honey into his hands and ate it all along the way. He also gave some to his father and mother, and they ate it. But he didn't tell them he had taken the honey from the carcass of the lion. As his father was making final arrangements for the marriage, Samson threw a party at Timnah, as was the custom for elite's young men. When the bride's parents saw him, they selected 30 young men from the town to be his companions. Samson said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of the celebration, I will give you 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. But if you can't solve it, then you must give me 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing." All right, they agreed. Let's hear the riddle. So he said, out of the one who eats something to eat. Out of the one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. 3 days later, they were still trying to figure it out. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband to explain the riddle for us, or we will burn down your father's house with you in it. Did you invite us to this party just to make us poor?" So Samson's wife came to him in tears and said, "You don't love me. You hate me. You have given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer." "I haven't even given the answer to my father or mother," he replied. "Why should I tell you?" So she cried whenever she was with him and kept it up for the rest of the celebration. At last, on the 7th day, he told her the answer because she was tormenting him with her nagging. Then she explained the riddle to the young men. So before sunset of the 7th day, the men of the town came to Samson with their answer. "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson replied, "If you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have solved my riddle." Then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. He went down to the town of Ashkelon, killed 30 men, took their belongings, and gave their clothing to the men who had solved his riddle. But Samson was furious about what had happened and went back home to live with his father and mother. So his wife was given in marriage to the man who had been Samson's best man at the wedding.
Chapter 15. After a while, in the time of wheat harvest, it happened that Samson visited his wife with a young goat, and he said, "Let me go in to my wife, into her room." Her father would not permit him to go in. Her father said, "I really thought that you thoroughly hated her. Therefore I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister better than she? Please take her instead." And Samson said to them, "This time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them." Then Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and he took torches, turned the foxes tail to tail, and put a torch between each pair of tails. When he had set the torches on fire, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and burned up both the shocks and the standing grain, as well as the vineyards and the olive groves. Then the Philistines said, "Who has done this?" And then they answered, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion." So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. Samson said to them, "Since you would do a thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you, and after that I will cease." So he attacked them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. Then he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Now the Philistines went up, encamped in Judah, and deployed themselves against Lehi. And the men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" So they answered, "We have come up to arrest Samson, to do to him as he has done to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down into the cleft of the rock of Etam and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines rule over us? What is this that you have done to us?" And he said to them, "As they did to me, so I have done to them." But they said to him, "We have come down to arrest you, that we may deliver you into the hands of the Philistines." Then Samson said to them, "Swear to me that you will not kill me yourselves." So they spoke to him, saying, "No, but we will tie you securely and deliver you into their hand, but we will surely not kill you." And they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. Then he came to Lehi. The Philistines came shouting against him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds broke loose from his hands. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out of his hand and took it, and killed 1,000 men with it. And then Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men." And so it was, when he had finished speaking, that he threw the jawbone from his hand and called that place Ramath Lehi. Then he became very thirsty, so he cried out to the Lord and said, "You have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now I shall die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised?" So God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, and water came out, and he drank. And his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore he called its name En-Hakor, which is in Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines.
Chapter 16. Samson went to Gaza, and there he saw a prostitute, and he went into her. The Gazites were told, "Samson has come here," and they surrounded the place and set an ambush for him all night at the gate of the city. They kept quiet all night, saying, "Let us wait till the light of the morning, then we will kill him." But Samson lay till midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the doors of the gate of the city and the 2 posts, and pulled them up, bar and all, and put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that is in front of Hebron. After this he loved the woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, "Seduce him and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him, and we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound, that one could subdue you." Samson said to her, "If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner chamber, and she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he snapped the bowstrings as a thread of flax snaps when it touches the fire, so the secret of his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Behold, you have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you might be bound." And he said to her, "If they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And the men lying in ambush were in an inner chamber, but he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you might be bound." And he said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web and fasten it tight with the pin, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his head and wove them into the web, and she made them tight with the pin and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he awoke from his sleep and pulled away the pin, the loom, the loom and the web. And she said to him, how can you say, I love you, when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times, and you have not told me where your great strength lies. And when she pressed him hard with her words, day after day, and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. And he told her all his heart, and said to her, a razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up again, for he has told me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hands. She made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. And she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he awoke from his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles. And he ground at the mill in the prison, but the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to rejoice. And they said, our God has given Samson our enemy into our hand. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God has given our enemy into our hand, the ravager of our country, who has killed many of us. And when their hearts were merry, they said, call Samson, that he may entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them. They made him stand between the pillars. And Samson said to the young man who held him by the hand, let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them. Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. And on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women who looked on while Samson entertained. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, O Lord God, please remember me and please strengthen me only this once, O God, that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And when Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, and he leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. And Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he had killed during his life. Then his brothers and all his family came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. He had judged Israel 20 years.
Chapter 17. Now there was a man from the mountain of Ephraim, whose name was Micah. And he said to his mother, the 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from you, and of which you had put a curse, even saying in my ears, here is a silver with me. I took it. And his mother said to him, may you be blessed by the Lord, my son. So when he had returned the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother said, I had wholly dedicated the silver from my hand to the Lord for my son to make a carved image and a molded image. Now therefore, I would return it to you. Then he returned the silver to his mother. Then his mother took 200 shekels of silver and gave them to the silversmith, and he made it into a carved image and a molded image. And they were all in the house of Micah. The man Micah had a shrine and made an ephod and a household idol, and he consecrated one of his sons who had become the priest. In those days, there were no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. There was a young man from Bethlehem in Judah, one of the families of Judah. He was a Levite, and he was staying there. The man departed from the city of Bethlehem in Judah to stay wherever he could find a place. Then he came to the mountain of Ephraim, to the house of Micah. As he journeyed, and Micah said to him, "Where did you come from?" And he said to him, "I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, and I'm on my way to find a place to stay." Micah said to him, "Dwell with me and be a father and a priest to me, and I will give you 10 shekels of silver per year, a suit of clothes, and your substance." So the Levite went in. Then the Levite was contented to dwell with the man, and the young man became like one of his sons to him. So Micah consecrated the Levite, and the young man became his priest and lived with him in the house of Micah. Then Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will be good to me, since I have a Levite as a priest."
Chapter 18. Now in those days, Israel had no king, and the tribe of Dan was trying to find a place where they could settle, for they had not yet moved into the land assigned to them, when the land was divided among the tribes of Israel. So the men of Dan chose from their clans 5 capable warriors from the towns of Zorah and Eshtaol to scout out a land for them to settle in. When these warriors arrived in the hill country of Ephraim, they came to Micah's house and spent the night there. While at Micah's house, they recognized the young Levite's accent, so they went over and asked him, "Who brought you here, and what are you doing in this place? Why are you here?" He told them about his agreement with Micah and that he had been hired as Micah's personal priest. Then they said, "Ask God whether or not our journey will be successful." "Go in peace," the priest replied, "for the Lord is watching over your journey." So the 5 men went on to the town of Laish, where they noticed the people living carefree lives like the Sidonians. They were peaceful and secure. The people were also wealthy because their land was very fertile, and they lived a great distance from Sidon and had no alleys nearby. When the men returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, their relatives asked them, "What did you find?" The men replied, "Come on, let's attack them. We have seen the land and it is very good. What are you waiting for? Don't hesitate to go and take possession of it. When you get there, you will find the people living carefree lives. God has given us a spacious and fertile land, lacking in nothing." So 600 men from the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war, set out from Zorah and Eshtaol. They camped at a place west of Kiriath Jearim in Judah, which is called Mahanadan to this day. Then they went on from there into the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. The 5 men who had scouted out the land around Laish explained to the others, "These buildings contain a sacred ephod, as well as some household idols, a carved image and a cast idol. What do you think you should do?" Then the 5 men turned off the road and went over to Micah's house, where the young Levite lived, and greeted him kindly. As the 600 armed warriors from the tribe of Dan stood at the entrance of the gate, the 5 scouts entered the shrine and removed the carved image, the sacred ephod, the household idols, and the cast idol. Meanwhile, the priest was standing at the gate with the 600 armed warriors. When the priest saw the men carrying all the sacred objects out of Micah's shrine, he said, "What are you doing?" "Be quiet and come with us," they said. "Be a father and priest to all of us. Isn't it better to be a priest for an entire tribe and clan of Israel than for the household of just one man?" The young priest was quite happy to go with them, so he took along the sacred ephod, the household idols, and the carved image. They turned and started on their way again, placing their children, livestock, and possessions in front of them. When the people from the tribe of Dan were quite a distance from Micah's house, the people who lived near Micah came chasing after them. They were shouting as they caught up with them. The men of Dan turned around and said to Micah, "What's the matter? Why have you called these men together and chased us like this?" "What do you mean, what's the matter?" Micah replied. "You've taken away all the gods I have made and my priests, and I have nothing left." The men of Dan said, "Watch what you say. There are some short-tempered men around here who might get angry and kill you and your family." So the men of Dan continued on their way. When Micah saw that there were too many of them for them to attack, he turned around and went home. Then with Micah's idols and his priests, the men of Dan came to the town of Laish, whose people were peaceful and secure. They attacked with swords and burned the town to the ground. There was no one to rescue the people, for they lived a great distance from Sidon and had no alleys nearby. This happened in the valley near Beth-hob. Then the people of the tribe of Dan rebuilt the town and lived there. They renamed the town Dan after their ancestor, Israel's son, but it had originally been called Laish. Then they set up the carved image, and they appointed Jonathan, son of Gershom, the son of Moses, as their priest. This family continued as priests for the tribe of Dan until the exile. So Micah's carved image was worshipped by the tribe of Dan as long as the tabernacle of God remained at Shiloh.
Chapter 19. And it came to pass in those days, when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite staying in the remote mountains of Ephraim. He took for himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. But his concubine played the harlot against him and went away from him to his father's house in Bethlehem in Judah. And it was there 4 months. Then the husband arose and went after her to speak kindly to her and bring her back, having his servant and a couple of donkeys with him. So she brought him into his father's house, and when the fathers of the young lady saw him, he was glad to meet him. Now his father-in-law, the young woman's father, detained him, and he stayed with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and lodged there. Then it came to pass in the 4th day that he arose early in the morning, and he stood to depart. But the young woman's father said to him, to his son-in-law, "Refresh your heart with a morsel of bread, and afterwards go your way." So they sat down, and the 2 of them ate and drank together. Then the young woman's father said to the man, "Please be content and stay all night, and let your heart be merry." And when the man stood to depart, his father-in-law urged him, so he lodged there again. Then he rose early in the morning on the 5th day to depart. But the young woman's father said, "Please refresh your hearts." So they delayed until afternoon, and both of them ate. And when the man stood up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the young woman's father, said to him, "Look, the day is now drawing towards evening. Please spend the night. See, the day is coming to an end. Lodge here." And let your heart be merry. Tomorrow you go your way early, so that you may get home. However, the man was not willing to spend the night, so he rose and departed, and came opposite Jabez, that is Jerusalem. With him were 2 saddled donkeys. His concubine was with him. They were near Jabez, and the day was far spent. And the servant said to the master, "Come, please, let us stand aside into the city of Jabez and lodge there." But the master said to him, "We will not turn aside here into the city of the foreigners, who are not of the children of Israel. We'll go to Jeriah." So he said to his servant, "Come, let us draw near to one of the places and spend the night in Jeriah or in Ramah." And they passed by and went their way. And the man went down on them near Jabez. He belonged to Benjamin. They turned aside there to go to lodge in Jabez, and when he went in, he sat down in the open square of the city, for no one would take them into their house to spend the night. Just then, an old man came in from his work in the fields at evening, who also was from the mountains of Ephraim. He said he was staying in Jabez, whereas the men of the place were Benjamites. And when he raised his eyes, he saw the traveler in the open square of the city. And the old man said, "Where are you going? And where do you come from?" So he said to him, "We are passing from Bethlehem in Judah towards the remote mountains of Ephraim. I am from there. I went to Bethlehem in Judah, and I am going to the house of my God. But there was no one who would take me into your house. All day we have both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for myself and my female servant, and for my young man who is your servant. There's no lack of anything." And the man said, "Peace be with you. However, let all your needs be my responsibility. Only do not spend the night in the open square." So he brought him into his house and gave him fodder to the donkeys, and they washed their feet and ate and drank. As they were enjoying themselves, suddenly certain men of the city, perverted men, surrounded the house and beat on the door. They spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, "Bring out the men who came to your house, that we may know them carnally." But the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brethren, I beg you, do not so wickedly. See that this man has come into my house. Do not commit this outrage. Look, here is my virgin daughter and the man's concubine. Let me bring them out now. Humble them and do with them, as you please. But to this man do not do any vile thing." But the men would not heed him. So the men took his concubine and brought her out to them, and they knew her and abused her all night till morning. And when the day began to break, they let her go. Then the woman came as the day was drawing, and fell at the door of the man's house where his master was, till there was light. When her master arose in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way, there was his concubine fallen at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, "Get up and let us be going." But there was no answer. So the men lifted her onto the donkey, and the man got up and went to his place. When he entered his house, he took a knife, laid hold of his concubine, and divided her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her throughout all the territories of Israel. And so it was that all who saw it said, "No such deed has been done or seen from the days that the children of Israel came up from Egypt, the land of Egypt, unto this day. Consider it, confer, and speak out." Amen.
French, juge 20. Les Israélites décident de punir les gens de Gibéa. Tous les Israélites vinrent depuis Dan jusqu'à Beersheva et jusqu'au pays de Galad, et l'assemblée s'est réunie comme un seul homme devant l'Éternel des Mitzvah. Les chefs, tout le peuple et toutes les tribus d'Israël prirent part à cette assemblée du peuple de Dieu, composée de 400 milliers de fantassins portant l'épée. Les Benjamites apprirent que tous les autres Israélites s'étaient rendus à Mispa. À cette réunion, les Israélites demandèrent qu'on leur explique comment ce crime a été commis. Alors les Lévites, dont la femme avait été tuée, prit la parole et dit: J'étais arrivé avec mon épouse de second rang à Gibéa de Benjamin pour y passer la nuit. Les habitants de la ville s'en sont pris à moi pendant la nuit. Ils ont encerclé la maison où j'ai logé avec l'intention de me tuer. Ils ont abusé de ma femme jusqu'à ce qu'elle en meure. Alors j'ai pris son corps et je l'ai coupé en 12 morceaux et j'ai envoyé dans tous les territoires attribués à l'Israël, parce qu'un crime abominable et infâme a été commis en Israël. Vous voici tous réunis, Israélites. À vous de délibérer et de tenir conseil ici même. Tout le peuple s'élève unanime en disant: Aucun de nous ne retournera chez lui et nul ne se retirera dans sa maison. Maintenant, voici comment nous agirons contre Gibéa. Nous tirerons au sort pour déterminer qui ira le combattre. Nous choisirons 10 hommes sur 100, 100 sur 1000 et 1000 sur 10 000 de toutes les tribus d'Israël, et nous les changerons d'assurer le ravitaillement du reste de l'armée. À leur retour, les autres iront châtier Gibéa et Benjamin pour l'acte infâme qu'ils ont commis en Israël. Tous les hommes d'Israël se rassemblèrent pour marcher contre la ville, unis comme un seul homme. Les Benjamites refusent de livrer le coupable. Les différentes tribus envoyèrent d'abord les messages dans toute la tribu de Benjamin pour y dire: Comment un crime aussi horrible a-t-il pu être commis chez vous? Maintenant, livrez-nous sans tarder vos vauriens qui sont à Gibéa pour que nous les exécutions et que nous fassions disparaître le mal du milieu d'Israël. Mais les Benjamites ne voulurent pas écouter leurs compatriotes israélites. Au contraire, ils quittèrent leur ville et se rassemblèrent à Gibéa pour partir en guerre contre les Israélites. 26 milliers d'hommes de Benjamin
tirent l'épée fuient recensés ce jour-là, sans compter les habitants de Gibéa qui fournirent 700 de soldats d'élite. Dans cette troupe, il y avait 700 de soldats d'élite gauche, tout capables de toucher un cheveu sans le manquer, avec une pierre de leur fonde. L'armée d'Israël sans Benjamin comptait 400 milliers d'hommes maniaient l'épée à tout aguerris. L'expédition punitive contre la tribu de Benjamin. Les Israélites se rendirent à Bethel pour consulter Dieu. Ils demandèrent « Quelle tribu doit attaquer le premier le gens de Benjamin ?» L'Éternel répondit « Juda marchera en premier. » Dès le lendemain matin, les Israélites se mirent en marche et dressèrent leur camp en face de Gibéa. Puis ils sortirent pour aller combattre les Benjamites et se rangèrent en ordre de bataille face à Gibéa. Les hommes de Benjamin sortirent de Gibéa et ils tuèrent jusque-là sur le champ de bataille 22 000 hommes d'Israël. Mais l'armée d'Israël reprit courage et se rangea de nouveau en ordre de bataille au même emplacement que la veille. Jusqu'au soir, les Israélites étaient allés pleurer devant l'Éternel et ils l'avaient interrogé en disant « Devons-nous engager de nouveau le combat contre les Benjamites, nos compatriotes ?» L'Éternel répondit « Marchez contre eux. » Le lendemain donc, les Israélites attaquèrent une seconde fois ceux de Benjamin, qui sortirent de Gibéa pour les affronter et massacrer encore ce jour-là sur le terrain. 18 000 soldats d'Israël portant l'épée. Alors, tous les Israélites montèrent en foule à Bethel. Ils restèrent là, assis devant l'Éternel, pleurant et jetant jusqu'au soir, et ils offrirent des holocaustes, des sacrifices de communion devant l'Éternel. Puis ils consultèrent encore l'Éternel. En effet, à cet endroit se trouvait alors le coffre des alliances de Dieu. Phinéas, le fils d'Éléazar, le petit-fils d'Aaron, était en fonction devant le coffre à cette époque. Il demanda « Devons-nous à nouveau aller combattre nos frères des tribus de Benjamin ou cesser des hostilités ?» L'Éternel répondit « Allez-y, car demain je vous donnerai la victoire sur eux. » Les Israélites portèrent des hommes en embuscade autour de Gibéa. Puis ils allèrent à nouveau attaquer les Benjamites le 3e jour. Ils se rangèrent en ordre de bataille face à Gibéa, comme les 2 fois précédentes. Les hommes de Benjamin sortirent de nouveau pour les affronter. Les Benjamites se laissèrent entraîner loin de la ville. Ils commencèrent, comme précédemment, à faire des victimes en plein champ sur les routes qui mènent l'une de Bethel, l'autre à Gibéa. Ils tuèrent ainsi une 30aine d'Israélites. Alors les Benjamites se dirent « Le voilà battu comme les autres fois. » Mais les Israélites avaient convenu de fuir et de les attirer sur des chemins des campagnes loin de leur ville. Et soudain, tous les hommes d'Israël quittèrent leur position et se groupèrent en ordre de bataille à Baal-Tamar. Au même moment, les Israélites embusqués débouchaient de leur poste à Maré-Kabé, 10 000 hommes d'élite sélectionnés dans toute l'armée d'Israël arrivèrent devant Gibéa. La bataille fut acharnée. Les Benjamites ne doutaient pas du désastre qu'il allait fondre sur eux. L'Éternel battit Benjamin devant Israël. Et ce jour-là, les Israélites leur tuèrent 25 100 hommes, tous sachant manier l'épée. Alors les Benjamites comprirent qu'ils étaient battus. Les hommes d'Israël leur avaient cédé du terrain parce qu'ils comptaient sur l'embuscade postée près de Gibéa. De fait, les hommes cachés se précipitèrent sur Gibéa. Ils se répandirent dans la ville et ils massacrèrent les habitants. Ils avaient convenu avec les restes de l'armée d'Israël de faire monter de la ville une épaisse fumée. Les hommes d'Israël devaient alors faire volte-face dans la bataille. Donc, alors les Benjamites avaient commencé à leur tuer une trentaine d'hommes et pensaient les avoir battus comme précédemment. Une épaisse colonne de fumée commença à s'élever de la ville. Les Benjamites se retournèrent et virent que toute leur ville était en flammes, s'élevant vers le ciel. En ce moment-là, les hommes d'Israël se retournèrent contre eux. Les Benjamins qui furent terrifiés, car ils virent le désastre fondre sur eux. Ils s'enfuirent devant les hommes d'Israël en prenant le chemin du désert. Mais l'armée d'Israël naissera de près, tandis que les hommes qui avaient été en embuscade près de la ville le prirent en revers et le massacrent à mi-chemin. Les Israélites encerclèrent les Benjamites, les pourchassèrent sans leur laisser le répit et les écrasèrent à côté de Gibéa. Ainsi périrent 18 000 hommes de Benjamin, tous hommes de guerre. Les survivants s'enfuient en direction des déserts vers les rochers des Rimons. En chemin, 5 000 hommes furent tués, puis en les serrant de près jusqu'à Gidéon. Les Israélites en abattirent encore 2 000 de plus. Le total des Benjamites tués ce jour-là fut donc de 25 000 soldats, portant l'épée, tous des hommes de guerre. 600 hommes qui avaient tourné des talons et s'étaient enfouis au désert restèrent durant 4 mois sur le rocher de Rimon. Entre-temps, les Israélites se tournèrent contre les Benjamites et exterminèrent la ville en ville, les hommes, les bêtes et tout ce qui leur tombait sous les mains. Après quoi, ils mirent le feu à toutes les villes de la région.
Judges 21. The Israelites had vowed at Mizpeh, "We will never give our daughters in marriage to a man from the tribe of Benjamin." Now the people went to Bethel and sat in the presence of God until evening, weeping loudly and bitterly. "O Lord, God of Israel," they cried out, "why has this happened in Israel? Now, one of our tribes is missing from Israel." Early the next morning, the people built an altar and presented their burnt offerings and peace offerings on it. Then they said, "Who among the tribes of Israel did not join us at Mizpeh when we held our assembly in the presence of the Lord?" At that time, they had taken a solemn oath in the Lord's presence, vowing that anyone who refused to come would be put to death. The Israelites felt sorry for their brother Benjamin and said, "Today, one of the tribes of Israel has been cut off. How can we find wives for the few who remain? Since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them our daughters in marriage." So they asked, "Who among the tribes of Israel did not join us at Mizpeh when we assembled in the presence of the Lord?" And they discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had attended the assembly. For after they counted all the people, no one from Jabesh Gilead was present. So the assembly sent 12,000 of their best warriors to Jabesh Gilead with orders to kill everyone there, including women and children. "This is what you are to do," they said. "Completely destroy all the males and every woman who is not a virgin." Among the residents of Jabesh Gilead, they found 400 young virgins who had never slept with a man, and they brought them to the camp at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. The Israelite assembly sent a peace delegation to the remaining people of Benjamin who were living at the rock of Rimmon. When the men of Benjamin returned to their homes, and the 400 women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared were given to them as wives, but there was not enough women for all of them. The people felt sorry for Benjamin because the Lord had made this gap among the tribes of Israel. So the elders of the assembly said, "How can we find wives for the few who remain, since the women of the tribe of Israel of Benjamin are dead? There must be heirs for the survivors so that an entire tribe of Israel is not wiped out. But we cannot give them our own daughters in marriage because we have sworn with a solemn oath that anyone who does this will fall under God's curse." Then they thought of the annual festival of the Lord held in Shiloh, south of Lebanon, Lebona, and north of Bethel, along the east side of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem. They told the men of Benjamin who still needed wives, "Go and hide in the vineyards. When you see the young women of Shiloh come out for their dance, rush out from the vineyards, and each of you take one of them home to the land of Benjamin to be your wife. And when their fathers and brothers come to us in protest, we will tell them, please be sympathetic. Let them have your daughters, for we didn't find wives for all of them when we destroyed Jabesh Gilead. And you are not guilty of breaking the vow, since you did not actually give your daughters to them in marriage." So the men of Benjamin did as they were told. Each man caught one of the women as they danced in the celebration and carried her off to be his wife. They returned to their own land, and they rebuilt their towns and lived in them. Then the people of Israel departed by tribe and families, and they returned to their own homes. In those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes.